She has another dad. The words landed in the living room with more force than the ceramic mug that shattered against the floor. Coffee spread across the white tiles like a stain that had been waiting years to appear. I didn't move. Neither did my 8-year-old daughter, Lily. She stood beside the staircase, clutching the stuffed rabbit I'd bought her on the day she learned to walk. Her tiny fingers tightened around it until the fabric wrinkled. My wife, Vanessa, crossed her arms. "It's okay," she repeated, her voice colder this time. "She has another dad." The room became so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking behind me. Tick, tick, tick. Lily's breathing trembled. Across the sofa sat Daniel. He wasn't family, not officially. He smiled awkwardly, as if embarrassed by the situation, but unwilling to leave. The smile made everything worse. I slowly looked from Vanessa to Daniel, then to Lily. Finally, my eyes returned to my wife. I said nothing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask who another dad was. I already knew. For nearly a year, Daniel had been appearing more and more often. School pickups, birthday parties, weekend outings. Vanessa always had an explanation. "He's helping. You're too busy. Lily likes him." Every excuse had sounded reasonable by itself. Together, they built a prison. "I waited for you today," Lily whispered. Her voice cracked. "They said you couldn't come." I swallowed. "I never got a call." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "You missed another school performance." "I didn't know there was one." "You always have an excuse." Daniel stood up. "Maybe I should." "No," Vanessa interrupted. "Stay." She looked directly at me. "Lily deserves someone who's actually there." Something inside my chest tightened. 3 months ago, I'd worked 72 consecutive hours to save my company's largest client. The bonus had paid Lily's tuition for the next 3 years. 6 months ago, I'd sold the motorcycle I'd loved since college because Vanessa wanted a larger SUV. 1 year ago, I turned down a promotion overseas because Lily cried at the thought of changing schools. Every sacrifice had happened quietly. No speeches, no complaints. Apparently, quiet sacrifices were invisible. Vanessa picked up her phone. Daniel came to every recital. She scrolled. He coached her soccer. Another swipe. He even taught her to ride a bicycle. Each photo felt like another page of my life being erased. Not because Daniel had done those things, because I had never been given the chance. Lily, I took one careful step forward. She instinctively looked toward Daniel. Not me, toward him. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. That frightened me. Pain should have hurt. Instead, it became clear, crystal clear. I finally understood why every time I tried planning something with my daughter, there had been a birthday invitation, a play date, a last-minute family event, a dance lesson, something, always something. I hadn't been failing. I'd been replaced, piece by piece, without anyone saying it aloud. Until today, Vanessa finally had. "You heard me," she said. "She has another dad." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Vanessa, maybe that's enough." "No." She pointed toward me. "I'm tired of pretending. You were never present." I looked into her eyes. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't searching for understanding. I was searching for truth. And I found it. There wasn't anger. There wasn't guilt. Only relief. She had been waiting to say those words. Waiting for permission to stop pretending we were a family. I turned toward Lily. "Ketchup or barbecue?" Everyone blinked. Lily frowned. "What?" "For chicken nuggets. The restaurant after your recital. I promised we'd argue about sauces." She stared at me, confused. Then something flickered inside her eyes. A memory. She looked uncertain. "I remember." Vanessa interrupted. "That was years ago." "No." I smiled gently. 3 months. Lily's eyes widened. "You remembered." "I remember everything." Silence. Children notice who remembers. Their favorite color. Their fears. Their silly jokes. Their promises. Not because they're expensive. Because they're proof someone sees them. I remembered every promise. I simply hadn't been allowed to keep most of them. Daniel slowly lowered his eyes. The smile had disappeared. He finally understood what he had unknowingly walked into. This wasn't neglect. This was displacement. Vanessa opened her mouth again. Before she could speak, the doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. Daniel walked over and opened it. A woman in a navy blazer stood outside. Courier. She held out a thick envelope. For Mr. Ethan Carter. I accepted it. Corporate legal seal. Strange. I wasn't expecting anything. Vanessa glanced over. What is it? I don't know. I opened it. The first page made my fingers freeze. Notice of internal investigation. Misuse of company resources. Financial irregularities. Executive misconduct. Attached below. Photographs. Emails. Expense reports. One familiar name appeared over and over. Daniel Brooks. Regional Operations Manager. Daniel's face drained of color. He snatched the pages. No. He flipped frantically through them. This can't be right. Vanessa looked between us. See. What happened? Daniel whispered. I think. They know. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Because for the first time, the man who had quietly stepped into my family looked genuinely afraid. And I had absolutely no idea why. Daniel kept turning pages with shaking hands. Each sheet revealed another highlighted transaction, another forged approval, another unauthorized payment. His breathing became uneven. This isn't possible. Vanessa grabbed the folder. What are you talking about? He tried pulling it back. She refused to let go. The pages scattered across the floor. Lily instinctively stepped behind me. Without thinking, I moved slightly in front of her. Not dramatically, just enough that she no longer had to look at the adults arguing. Old habits. Some instincts never disappear. Vanessa picked up one page. What is this? Daniel swallowed. It's work. She frowned. Why is your name on every page? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at me. You knew. I met his gaze. I opened the envelope 10 seconds ago. No, before today. I didn't. That was the truth. Whatever disaster had found Daniel had nothing to do with me. But I couldn't ignore one detail. The investigation came from my own company, and Daniel worked in another division. Why had legal mailed the notice to my home? My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I answered. Ethan Carter speaking. Mr. Carter? A calm female voice. This is Grace Holden from Executive Compliance. I received your documents. I'm aware. We need to speak tonight. I don't understand. You will. She paused. Don't discuss the investigation with anyone. Too late. She continued. Especially Mr. Brooks. The line disconnected. Daniel stared at me. Who was that? I slipped the phone into my pocket. Work. He laughed nervously. Funny. Nobody else laughed. Vanessa suddenly looked irritated. Can we stop talking about business? She pointed toward Lily. That's not the issue today. No. I nodded. It isn't. I crouched until I was eye level with my daughter. Lily. She looked at me cautiously. Did you enjoy your recital? A tiny smile appeared. We sang 3 songs. Did you get nervous? She nodded. A little. I would have clapped the loudest. She stared at me for several seconds, then quietly asked, Would you really? The question hurt more than anything Vanessa had said. Not because Lily doubted me, because someone had taught her to. I would have embarrassed you. She giggled despite herself. I would have stood up. Another smile. Small. Fragile. Real. Vanessa stepped forward. Lily, come on. My daughter hesitated. It lasted only 2 seconds, but it was the first time in months she hadn't immediately obeyed. Children notice more than adults realize. Especially tension. Especially lies. Especially consistency. She slowly walked toward her mother. Halfway there, she turned around. Dad. The word felt unfamiliar in the room. Yes. Did you really remember the sauces? I smiled. You always steal my fries when you pick barbecue. A tiny laugh escaped her. You noticed. I notice everything. Vanessa's expression hardened. We're leaving. Daniel reached for his car keys. His hands were still shaking. As they approached the front door, my phone rang again. Grace Holden. I answered immediately. Mr. Carter. Yes. I apologize. For what? The package wasn't supposed to reach you before our meeting. What meeting? You've been recommended for interim executive appointment. I blinked. I think you called the wrong person. No. Paper rustled. Ethan Michael Carter. Senior Financial Controller. 10 years with the company. Highest ethics rating. My stomach tightened. What appointment? Our current chief financial officer resigned this morning. I frowned. I didn't know. Few people do. Another pause. The investigation involving Mr. Brooks reaches much higher than regional management. I instinctively looked toward Daniel. He was frozen near the doorway, listening. Grace lowered her voice. We believe someone has been using his position. Someone will explain everything. When? 1 hour. The call ended. Daniel looked as though he wanted to say something. Instead, he hurried outside. Vanessa followed him. Before leaving, she stopped at the doorway. You think getting promoted changes today? I looked at her quietly. No, it changes tomorrow. She scoffed. You'll always be the man who failed his daughter. For the first time all evening, I smiled. Not because her words didn't hurt. Because they no longer controlled me. My daughter will decide that. Nothing more. Nothing less. Vanessa's lips parted. She searched for another cruel sentence. She couldn't find one. The silence stretched. I simply looked at her. Steady. Calm. Unmoving. The confidence in my eyes made hers falter. She looked away first. Without another word, she walked out. The front door closed. The house became painfully quiet. I looked down. Near the sofa lay Lily's stuffed rabbit. She had forgotten it. I picked it up carefully. Tucked inside one worn ear was a folded piece of notebook paper. In uneven handwriting were 6 words. I miss when you came home. The date beneath the sentence was 7 months old. I closed my eyes. Someone had hidden that note before I ever had the chance to read it. And suddenly I knew the greatest betrayal inside my home had never been another man. It had been every moment deliberately stolen between a father and his daughter. The folded note stayed in my hand long after the front door slammed shut. I read the 6 words again. I miss when you came home. 7 months. For 7 months, Lily had carried those feelings without telling me. Or maybe she had tried. The thoughts settled in my chest like wet concrete. My phone buzzed. Grace Holden. I've sent the address. A downtown office tower. Top floor. No company logo. Just an address. I'll be there. I slipped the note into my wallet, exactly behind a family photo I had carried for years. The irony wasn't lost on me. One memory had been fading. The other had been hidden. The conference room overlooked the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the orange glow of sunset. 3 people waited inside. Grace Holden, an older man in a charcoal suit. Another younger attorney organizing files. Grace stood. Mr. Carter. She extended her hand. I'm sorry our first meeting has to happen under these circumstances. I'd rather know the truth. She nodded toward the older man. This is Richard Hale, the company's chairman. I'd seen him once, from across a ballroom during an annual gala. Never in person. He studied me for several silent seconds. So you're Ethan? I am. You don't look surprised. I've had a strange day. For the first time, the chairman smiled. Good answer. He gestured toward chair. Sit. A thick binder slid across the polished table. On the cover, Operation Hollow Ledger. Grace opened it. For 18 months, someone has been redirecting company funds through shell vendors. My eyes scanned the first pages. The numbers were staggering. Million. Richard spoke quietly. Daniel Brooks approved many transactions. I saw his name. He isn't the mastermind. Grace changed to another page. There are authorization codes that couldn't have come from him. So someone used him. Exactly. She leaned forward, and someone inside accounting repeatedly questioned those transactions. I frowned. Who? She looked directly at me. You. I blinked. I filed 3 audit requests. You filed 17. She pushed another stack of documents toward me. Every report carried my signature. Some I remembered. Others never reached my desk again. They were buried. Richard folded his hands. Someone made sure your concerns disappeared and promoted everyone who ignored them. Silence. I thought about the late nights, the rejected reports, managers who called me too cautious, the promotions I'd mysteriously lost. It hadn't been incompetence. Ide ben inconvenient. Grace slid over one final document. Effective immediately. Interim Chief Financial Officer. Salary adjustment. Executive authority. I looked at the paper, then closed the folder. I'll accept. Richard raised an eyebrow. No negotiations? I have one condition. He waited. The investigation proceeds without protecting anyone. Grace exchanged a glance with him. No exceptions. No exceptions. Even if they're executives? Especially if they are. Richard slowly nodded. I chose correctly. The next morning, my office had doubled in size. Mahogany desk. Private conference room. Executive parking. None of it felt real. What felt real was the empty framed photograph on the bookshelf. Someone had removed the generic stock image. The frame waited for a real family. I left it empty. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Grace entered. You have visitors. I don't remember scheduling anyone. You didn't. Before I could ask, the door opened. Vanessa. Daniel. My pulse didn't change. Neither of them knew about my promotion. Judging by Daniel's wrinkled shirt and bloodshot eyes, he hadn't slept. Vanessa forced a smile. Ethan. I remained seated. What brings you here? Daniel stepped forward. I need your help. The words sounded almost painful coming from him. Help. You work in finance. I do. There has to be some misunderstanding. I folded my hands. What misunderstanding? The investigation. He laughed nervously. I signed documents because my supervisors told me to. Vanessa quickly added, he's just being used. Interesting. Yesterday, she'd said Lily had another father. Today, she was defending another man. I looked at Daniel. Did you sign documents without reading them? He hesitated. Yes. Repeatedly. Sometimes. For 18 months? He said nothing. The silence answered for him. Vanessa became impatient. Ethan, this isn't the time. No. She took a deep breath. We're asking as family. Family. The words sounded unfamiliar. I remembered another sentence. She has another dad. I slowly stood, walked around my desk, stopped in front of them. Yesterday, you said Lily already had another father. Vanessa's expression stiffened. That's different, is it? I was angry. You sounded certain. Daniel looked uncomfortable. Maybe we should go. Vanessa ignored him. Ethan, please. No. One simple word. Not loud. Not emotional. Just final. I won't interfere. You could at least talk to someone. I already have. Daniel's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means the investigation will follow the evidence. Vanessa stared at me as though seeing a stranger. You've changed. I nodded. Yes. For once. I had. As they turned to leave, Grace entered again. She looked surprised to find them there. Then her expression became unreadable. Mr. Brooks. Daniel froze. You've been difficult to locate. His face turned pale. I'm here. She handed him a sealed envelope. Official summons. His fingers trembled. Vanessa looked between them. What is that? Grace answered calmly. A mandatory interview. Daniel swallowed hard. When? Grace looked at her watch. In 23 minutes. The color drained from Vanessa's face. For the first time, she realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a collapse. Daniel left my office clutching the summons with both hands. Vanessa followed him, but she stopped at the doorway. She looked back once. Not with anger. Not with confidence. With uncertainty. The kind that appears only when the future suddenly refuses to obey your plans. Ethan, I looked up from the file on my desk. What if this gets worse? She hesitated. Lily shouldn't have to suffer. I held her gaze. She already has. The words landed softly. That made them heavier. Vanessa lowered her eyes. For a brief moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she turned and walked away. The door closed behind her. Grace waited until the footsteps faded before speaking. You handled that well. I simply answered honestly. She smiled faintly. That's becoming rare. She placed another folder on my desk. This one isn't about Daniel. I opened it. Inside were employee access logs, calendar records, building security footage. My name appeared repeatedly. What am I looking at? Grace tapped one highlighted date. March 17th. I searched my memory. That was Lily's spring recital. You requested the afternoon off. I did. It was denied. I nodded. My manager said we were understaffed. Grace turned the page. Security footage from that afternoon showed my manager leaving the building at noon with a set of golf clubs. My jaw tightened. He wasn't working. No, he played 18 holes. Another page. April 22nd. I had missed Lily's parent-child science fair. Reason given: emergency budget review. Attached to the file was a restaurant receipt. 3 executives. Wine. Steak. Lunch lasting nearly 3 hours. Not an emergency. Not even close. Grace watched my expression carefully. They knew you were dependable. So they kept using me. And every time you missed something important, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Someone else had always been available to step into the empty space. Daniel. I closed the folder slowly. This isn't just corruption. No, it's manipulation. Grace nodded. People who exploit loyal employees often exploit their families without even realizing it. Her words lingered long after she left. That evening, I drove to Lily's school, not because I expected to see her, because I needed to. The auditorium lights were off. The stage sat empty. Rows of small folding chairs faced a silent piano. I walked onto the stage. Imagine Lily standing there in her blue dress, searching the audience, waiting. One empty seat. One promise broken. A janitor sweeping near the back noticed me. "You okay?" I smiled politely. "I missed a recital." He leaned on the broom. "Happens. More than once." He studied me for a moment. "You know." He pointed toward the front row. "Little blonde girl. Lily." She always looked at that seat. My throat tightened. Always. Every performance. He shrugged gently. Sometimes she'd smile halfway through, like she thought someone had finally arrived. He returned to sweeping. Poor kid. I couldn't answer. When I reached the parking lot, someone called my name. "Ethan." I turned. It was Mrs. Evelyn Harper, Lily's third-grade teacher. She hurried toward me, carrying a canvas tote bag. "I've been trying to reach you." "I'm sorry." She gave me a long look. "No, I think someone has been making that difficult." My heartbeat slowed. "What do you mean?" She opened the bag. Inside were several unopened envelopes. These were returned to the school. I frowned. They're addressed to me. They were. Everyone came back marked parent notified. I was never notified. "I know." She handed them over. "Your email address had been changed in our system." My hands tightened around the stack. "Changed? Months ago." "Who changed it?" She hesitated. "I assumed your wife." I looked at the envelopes. Field trip permission. Reading awards. Parent conferences. Science fair. Music recital. Every event I had supposedly ignored. Every opportunity one had supposedly missed. Not because I didn't care. Because someone had quietly erased my place before I even knew it existed. Mrs. Harper spoke softly. "Lily defended you." I looked up. "What?" "Whenever another parent criticized you for not showing up." My chest tightened. "What did she say?" The teacher smiled sadly. "She always said, 'My dad keeps his promises. He just doesn't know where to find me.'" I closed my eyes. For several seconds, the parking lot disappeared. All I could hear was my daughter's voice, still believing in me, even while someone else worked to convince her I didn't care. When I opened my eyes again, the sun had almost set. The sky burned orange above the school. I slipped every unopened envelope into my briefcase beside the hidden note from the stuffed rabbit. I now carried proof of 2 things. The first was that someone had stolen my time with my daughter. The second was that Lily had never truly stopped waiting for me. And somewhere across the city, Vanessa still believed I would keep chasing a family that had already pushed me out. She didn't yet understand. I wasn't walking away from Lily. I was walking away from the lies that stood between us. The unopened school envelopes sat neatly beside my keyboard. I hadn't opened a single one. Not yet. Some truths deserved witnesses. At precisely 9 o'clock, Grace knocked once before entering. "They're here." I stood. "Boo." The Internal Review Committee. 5 executives filed into the conference room. None of them smiled. At the head of the table sat Richard Hale. His expression alone silenced the room. "Begin." A projector illuminated the wall. Bank transfers. Vendor contracts. Authorization chains. Months of hidden transactions. One name appeared repeatedly. Daniel Brooks. Another appeared less often. Martin Keller, Vice President of Operations. I frowned. Martin had been my direct supervisor for 6 years. He was the man who had denied nearly every leave request I'd ever submitted. Grace spoke calmly. "Mr. Brooks approved 73 fraudulent payments." The next slide appeared. Every payment originated from instructions issued by Vice President Keller. The room fell silent. Richard looked at Martin. Anything you'd like to explain? Martin adjusted his tie. I followed standard procedures. Grace clicked again. An email filled the screen. Make sure Carter stays busy. He asks too many questions. Sent from Martin. To Daniel. Dated 11 months earlier. I felt my stomach tighten. Grace continued. The committee recovered deleted correspondence from the backup server. Another email. His daughter's recital is Friday. Schedule the audit that afternoon. Another. Don't approve his vacation. Brooks can cover the school event instead. Vanessa already agreed. Every muscle in my body froze. Vanessa already agreed. The room blurred for a moment. Not because of the fraud. Because my wife had been communicating with my boss. Richard's voice became dangerously quiet. Mrs. Carter? Grace nodded. While she isn't connected to the financial crimes, she maintained frequent communication with Mr. Keller regarding Mr. Carter's schedule. My hands slowly closed in a fist beneath the table. Not in anger, in disbelief. Martin finally spoke. It wasn't illegal. No, Richard replied. It was disgusting. Another document appeared. Calendar invitations. Canceled family leave. Mandatory weekend meetings. Most had one common detail. They weren't necessary. Every emergency had been manufactured. Every crisis invented. Every missed birthday. Every canceled vacation. Every forgotten school event. Designed. Engineered. Martin looked at me. You wanted to be indispensable. I met his eyes. I wanted to provide for my family. You got promotions. I lost my daughter. For the first time, Martin had no reply. The meeting ended 3 hours later. Martin was escorted from the building by corporate security. Daniel's interview continued downstairs. Grace walked beside me toward my office. You okay? I thought I was. But I prepared myself to learn my wife stopped loving me. Grace remained silent. I wasn't prepared to learn she helped make me look like a stranger to my own daughter. She didn't offer empty comfort. Instead, she said, truth rarely hurts because it's unexpected. It hurts because it explains everything. I stopped walking. When did she start talking to Keller? Grace checked her tablet. Approximately 14 months ago. Before Daniel became a regular visitor. Before Lily started pulling away. Before every missed event. The replacement hadn't happened overnight. It had been planned. One small absence at a time. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I answered. Ethan. Silence. Then, Dad. My heart stopped. Lily. I borrowed Grandma's phone. Are you all right? I think so. Her tiny voice sounded uncertain. Mom and Daniel keep whispering. What about? I don't know. A pause. Then, Dad. Yes. Did I make you sad? The question shattered something inside me. No. You promise? I promise. Another long silence. I found Bunny. I smiled despite everything. I'm glad. There was another note inside. My smile disappeared. What note? I don't know who put it there. Paper rustled. She read slowly. If your daddy forgets again, don't cry. Daniel will come instead. My breathing stopped. When was that written? I don't know. It was inside Bunny. I found it after you took Bunny home. Someone had hidden that message inside her favorite toy. Not for me. For her. To teach an 8-year-old that her father would always disappoint her. I leaned against the hallway wall. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely dizzy. I drove straight to my mother-in-law's house. Not to argue. Not to demand answers. To see Lily. The familiar brick home looked exactly the same. Rose bushes. White fence. Wind chimes on the porch. Only one thing felt different. I no longer arrived as someone asking permission. I rang the bell. Margaret opened the door. She looked startled. Ethan, I like to see Lily. Her expression softened. Come in. She stepped aside. The house smelled of cinnamon and old books. Lily sat cross-legged on the living room rug, coloring a butterfly. The moment she saw me, her eyes widened. Dad! She ran. Not hesitantly. Not cautiously. She ran. Her arms wrapped tightly around my waist. I closed my eyes and held her as gently as I could. I missed you. I missed you more. Neither of us let go immediately. Margaret quietly disappeared into the kitchen, giving us privacy. Finally, Lily looked up. I saved Bunny. I know. I found the paper. So did I. She reached into her pocket and unfolded the second note. The childish handwriting wasn't hers. The words were simple, cruel, calculated. If Daddy doesn't come, don't be disappointed. Daniel loves you too. I read it twice, then folded it carefully. Lily, she nodded. Did anyone ever tell you to hide these notes? Her smile faded. She looked toward the kitchen, then back at me. Mom said they would help me understand. My chest tightened. Understand what? That people leave. I crouched so our eyes were level. Lily, she stared at me. I'm going to tell you something. She listened with complete seriousness. There is only one thing in this world that could ever stop me from coming to you. What? Not knowing where you're waiting. Tears formed in her eyes. I waited. I know. I always waited. I know. She pressed her forehead against mine. I thought maybe she couldn't finish. I whispered, you never had to earn my love. A small sob escaped her. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The silence healed more than words could. A cup of tea appeared beside us. Margaret sat quietly in the armchair. I owe you an apology. I looked at her. For what? I believe Vanessa. She folded her hands. She told everyone you chose work. I didn't answer. There were times I wanted to call you. What stopped you? Margaret lowered her eyes. Vanessa always said, he already knows. She looked ashamed. I never checked. No one did. Another painful silence settled over the room. Then Margaret stood. I have something. She disappeared upstairs. When she returned, she carried a plastic storage box. I almost threw this away. Inside were dozens of drawings, construction paper, crayon sketches, birthday cards, every single one addressed to me. For Daddy. Most had never reached my hands. One drawing showed 3 stick figures holding hands. Me, Lily, Vanessa. Across the corner, in red marker, someone had written, don't give this yet. Another drawing showed only 2 people, Lily and Daniel. The third figure had been erased so hard the paper nearly tore. I stared at the faint outline. The erased figure still wore my glasses. Margaret covered her mouth. I never saw these before. Lily looked confused. I thought Daddy didn't want them. I slowly gathered every drawing into the box. I want every single one. She smiled through her tears. Really, I'll keep them forever. She hugged me again. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Inside, I finally understood the full shape of the betrayal. It had never been one cruel sentence. It had never been one affair. It had been hundreds of tiny decisions. Every hidden letter, every changed email, every canceled invitation, every whispered lie. None of them alone could steal Father. Together, they almost did. As I carried the box toward the front door, my phone vibrated. Grace's name flashed across the screen. I answered. What happened? Her voice was unusually tense. Ethan, they found a witness. A witness to what? The person who instructed Daniel to become close to your family. I stopped walking. Who is it? Grace took a slow breath. It's not who we expected. My grip tightened around the plastic storage box. Rain drummed against the windshield as I stood beneath Margaret's porch. Grace's voice remained steady. We need you back at headquarters. Who is the witness? I'd rather you hear it in person. Grace. A brief silence. Then, it's someone who worked inside your home. The call ended. Margaret noticed my expression. Ethan, I have to go. Lily immediately reached for my sleeve. So soon. I knelt beside her. I'll come back. She searched my face carefully. You promise? I smiled gently. I don't make promises I can't keep. She slipped one of her drawings into my jacket pocket. So you won't forget. I never could. She wrapped her arms around me once more before letting go. This time, she smiled first. The executive conference room was quieter than ever. Richard Hale stood beside the windows. Grace waited with another woman in her early 50s. She wore a simple gray cardigan and looked as though she hadn't slept. Grace spoke first. Ethan, this is Nora Ellis. The woman stood. I used to clean your house. Recognition slowly returned. Nora. She had worked every Thursday afternoon for almost 3 years. She looked at me with watery eyes. I'm sorry. For what? I should have spoken sooner. She reached into her handbag and carefully removed a small flash drive. I started saving things because something didn't feel right. Grace connected it to the conference room screen. Several video files appeared. Hidden camera footage. The date stretched back nearly a year. I frowned. You recorded my house. Nora quickly shook her head. No, I recorded my cleaning schedule. She explained quietly. I kept a small camera clipped to my apron after another client falsely accused me of stealing. Richard nodded. Perfectly legal. The first video began. The camera faced the kitchen. Vanessa stood with Martin Keller, my former supervisor. They weren't arguing. They were laughing. Martin handed Vanessa a printed calendar. She circled several dates. School recital, father-daughter picnic, science fair, weekend camping trip. Martin smiled. I'll make sure he's stuck at work. Vanessa laughed softly. Lily cries less now. My stomach twisted. Martin leaned against the counter. Eventually she'll stop expecting him. Vanessa looked toward the hallway. That's the idea. The video ended. No one in the room spoke. Grace started another recording. Daniel had just entered the house. He looked uncomfortable. I don't think this is right. Vanessa sighed. It's temporary. She's starting to call me when she's scared. You'll get used to it. I don't want to replace Ethan. Martin chuckled. You don't have to. We're only making sure Ethan replaces himself. The words echoed through the conference room. Nobody breathed. Another video. Lily crying after a missed school event. Vanessa kneeling beside her. It's okay. Daddy chose work. No. Lily sobbed. He promised. Vanessa gently stroked her hair. Daniel's here. Go ask him. I closed my eyes. The sound of Lily crying was almost unbearable. Richard quietly switched off the projector. I've seen enough. Grace looked toward Nora. There's one more. Nora nodded silently. The final recording began. Vanessa stood alone in the kitchen. Phone pressed her ear. I know Ethan loves her. A pause. But love doesn't matter. Another pause. Children believe whoever shows up. She slowly smiled. And I'll make sure that's never him. The recording ended. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shouting could have been. Richard looked directly at me. Mr. Carter. I didn't answer. There will be criminal charges against Martin Keller. He turned to Grace. Forward every recording to the district attorney. Grace nodded. Richard looked back at me. As for your wife, I interrupted quietly. I'll handle that part. I didn't drive home immediately. Instead, I parked beside the small lake where Lily had learned to feed ducks when she was 4. The rain had stopped. Ripples spread across the water in perfect circles. I sat alone for nearly an hour, not planning revenge, planning freedom. My phone vibrated. Vanessa. I answered. Ethan. Her voice sounded exhausted. We need to talk. We do. Can you come home? I'll be there. The house felt unfamiliar. Boxes sat near the staircase. Daniel's shoes were gone. Vanessa waited in the dining room. No makeup. No carefully rehearsed confidence. She looked older than she had a week earlier. You've seen the videos. It wasn't a question. Yes. She lowered her head. I didn't think Nora. Neither did you. Silence. She slowly sat down. I never wanted things to go this far. I remained standing. How far did you want them to go? She struggled to answer. I was angry. For 14 months, I felt alone. So, you made Lily feel the same. Tears filled her eyes. I thought. She stopped. What? I thought if she depended on someone else, you could leave more easily. She covered her face. I didn't think about what it would do to her. No. You thought about what it would do for you. She didn't deny it. After several long moments, she whispered. Daniel ended it. I wasn't surprised. He said he couldn't keep pretending to be someone's father. I looked toward the empty living room. He understood before you did. She began crying quietly. I ruined everything. I finally sat across from her. Not because I pitied her. Because the truth deserved witnesses. Lily kept every drawing she made for me. Vanessa closed her eyes. I know. She waited for me. I know. She defended me. Her shoulders shook. I know. Did you ever tell her the truth? She couldn't answer. I reached into my jacket and placed the folded note from Bunny on the table. Then the second note. Then the unopened school envelopes. Finally, the stack of drawings. The table disappeared beneath years of stolen moments. Vanessa stared at them one by one. Each item silently accused her more effectively than I ever could. I never imagined. No, you imagined exactly what would happen. She wept openly now. I'm sorry. I believe she meant it. For the first time. But some apologies arrive after the damage has already grown roots. I forgive you. She looked up hopefully. But forgiveness doesn't restore trust. Her expression collapsed. I'm filing for divorce. She nodded slowly. I expected that. I'm also requesting primary custody. She closed her eyes. You'll win. No. I looked at her calmly. Lily wins. Another long silence settled between us. Eventually she whispered, will she hate me? I thought carefully before answering. That depends on what you do next. She frowned. You can't erase what happened, but you can stop lying about it. She looked at the drawings again. I'll tell her the whole truth. I stood. At the doorway I paused. Without turning around, I said, do one thing for her. What? When she asks where her father is, don't ever answer. Someone else is here. I walked out before she could respond. As I stepped into the cool evening air, my phone buzzed. It was Grace. The district attorney has approved charges against Martin Keller. And Daniel, he signed a full confession. I looked up at the darkening sky. The people who had manipulated others were finally facing the consequences of their own choices. I hadn't destroyed them. The truth had. The divorce proceedings took less than 4 months. There were no dramatic courtroom outbursts. No desperate attempts to save the marriage. By the time the final hearing arrived, the truth had already done all the arguing. Martin Keller had accepted a plea agreement in exchange for exposing the executives above him. Daniel had pleaded guilty to fraud, but received a reduced sentence for cooperating fully with investigators. Vanessa never faced criminal charges. What she faced instead was something no judge could control: the loss of her daughter's trust. Family court wasn't nearly as intimidating as I'd imagined. It was quiet, almost ordinary. The judge looked through the case file for several minutes before speaking. Mr. Carter, yes, Your Honor. I've reviewed the school records. He adjusted his glasses. The altered contact information. The intercepted correspondence. The witness statements. He closed the folder. These are among the most troubling parental interference cases I've seen. Across the room, Vanessa lowered her head. Her attorney placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. She didn't react. The judge continued. The court is not deciding which parent is more successful. It's deciding which parent consistently acted in the child's best interest. He looked toward Vanessa. Mrs. Carter. She stood quietly. I understand. The judge awarded primary custody to me. Joint legal custody remained. Supervised counseling was strongly recommended. No celebration followed. Winning custody didn't feel like victory. It felt like responsibility. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited behind metal barriers. News of the corporate corruption had attracted attention. Someone shouted my name. Mr. Carter, do you have a statement? I paused. Only once. My daughter deserves privacy. Nothing more. Nothing less. I walked away. Saturday morning arrived with sunlight spilling across the kitchen. Lily sat on the counter, swinging her legs while wearing an oversized apron. Pancakes. She pointed dramatically. Today's mission. I laughed. Chef Lily is in charge. She nodded seriously. You only flip. I obey. Flour somehow ended up everywhere. On the counter. On the floor. On my nose. Lily burst into laughter. You look ridiculous. I've been told worse. She grinned. I know. For the first time in months. Her laughter carried no hesitation. No guilt. No nervous glance toward another adult. Just laughter. Simple. Free. After breakfast, we unpacked the plastic storage box together. Every drawing found a place. I bought a large corkboard for the hallway. Lily carefully pinned each picture herself. This one's my favorite. She pointed to the oldest one. 3 stick figures. The family before everything broke. I want to keep it. So do I. Even though it's old? Especially because it's old. She smiled thoughtfully. Can we make new ones too? My throat tightened. I'd like that. The doorbell rang. Vanessa stood outside, holding a small paper bag. She looked nervous. I brought something. Lily looked at me. I nodded gently. It's your choice. After several seconds, Lily opened the door. Vanessa knelt. I found these. Inside the bag were dozens of photographs. Some had been hidden in a closet, others stored on old memory cards. Pictures of me teaching Lily to swim, helping with homework, sleeping beside her hospital bed after she broke her arm. Vanessa's voice trembled. I shouldn't have hidden them. Lily quietly accepted the bag. Thank you. The words were polite, not warm, not cold, honest. Vanessa didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply left. That alone told me she had finally started listening. That evening, Lily sat beside me on the porch. Dad, yes. Is Mommy bad? The question deserved more than anger. I looked toward the setting sun. No. Then why did she hurt us? I chose each word carefully. Sometimes adults become so focused on what they want, they stop seeing who they're hurting. Lily considered that. Can people get better? They can, if they tell the truth. That's where it starts. She leaned against my shoulder. I hope she tells the truth forever. So do I. Autumn arrived quietly. The trees outside our neighborhood turned shades of gold and crimson. Life settled into something unfamiliar. Peace. Not perfect, just peaceful. At work, the restructuring continued. Richard Hale officially offered me the permanent position of Chief Financial Officer. His office overlooked the entire city. I'll understand if you decline. I smiled. You sound uncertain. You've made it clear your priorities changed. They have. He folded his hands. What do you need? I answered without hesitation. No meetings after 5:30. He blinked. That's all. I eat dinner with my daughter. Richard laughed softly. I think the company can survive. He signed the appointment letter. So ordered. I kept my promise. Every evening at 6 o'clock, my phone went silent. No emails. No conference calls. No emergencies that weren't truly emergencies. At first, employees seemed confused. Then, managers began doing the same. Parents left work on time. Birthday dinners were attended. School plays filled with cheering families. One boundary quietly changed an entire culture. Grace noticed. You realize what you've done? I went home. She smiled. Exactly. One Friday afternoon, Lily burst through my office door, carrying a permission slip. Dad, I looked up from a budget report. What adventure have you planned now? Father-daughter nature camp. She placed the paper dramatically across my desk. You have to sign it. I pretended to examine the document carefully. She gasped. What? It says fathers who arrive late must sing camp songs alone. Her eyes widened. Really? I grinned. No. She laughed, so hard she nearly dropped the clipboard. I knew you were joking. I hope not. She handed me a pen. No missing this one. I signed immediately. She watched every stroke of the pen, satisfied, as though witnessing a promise becoming real. Nature camp was held beside a quiet mountain lake. Fathers pitched tents while children collected firewood. Lily proudly introduced me to everyone. This is my dad. No hesitation. No explanation. Just certainty. That night we sat around a campfire roasting marshmallows. One father asked casually, "What do you do?" Before I could answer, Lily spoke first. My dad keeps promises. The words hit harder than any promotion I'd ever received. I looked into the flames so she wouldn't notice the tears gathering in my eyes. Several weeks later, Vanessa requested another counseling session. She arrived carrying a notebook. I've been writing. The counselor nodded encouragingly. Vanessa turned toward Lily. I wrote down every lie I told. Lily listened quietly. I want to answer every question honestly. The room remained silent. Finally, Lily asked, "Why did you say Daddy forgot me?" Vanessa's voice shook. Because I wanted you to need someone else. Why? I thought it would make leaving easier. Lily looked down at her shoes. It only made everything harder. Vanessa covered her mouth and cried. No one rushed to comfort her. Some pain must simply be felt. Healing begins there. When the session ended, Lily hugged her mother. It wasn't the hug of complete forgiveness. It wasn't the hug of obligation. It was the hug of a child willing to believe someone could become better. Sometimes, that is the greatest gift anyone receives. As Lily slipped her hand into mine on the way to the parking lot, my phone vibrated. Grace had sent a single message. There's one final matter we need to close. I read it once, then put the phone away. Some chapters end in courtrooms. Others end in conversations that should have happened years earlier. Grace was already waiting when I arrived. For the first time since we'd met, she wasn't carrying a folder. Just 2 paper cups of coffee. I wasn't sure how you take it. Black. She smiled and handed me the correct cup. I guessed. We stood beside the large windows overlooking the city. Neither of us spoke for several moments. Finally, she broke the silence. The investigation is over. I nodded. I assumed it was. Martin Keller has been sentenced. 8 years. The executives above him, convicted. The shell companies, shut down. She looked toward me. Daniel asked me to give you something. She reached into her briefcase and produced a sealed envelope. He wrote this before sentencing. I don't know if you want to read it. I accepted it. The handwriting was shaky. I opened it slowly. Ethan, I spent months telling myself I wasn't taking anything from you. I convinced myself I was simply helping. That lie became easier every time Lily smiled at me. I should have walked away the first day Vanessa asked me to attend a school event. Instead, I stayed. Every step after that became another excuse. I never wanted Lily to stop loving you, but I also never stopped what was happening. That's my responsibility. There isn't a punishment the court can give me that hurts more than remembering the day she accidentally called me Dad. She immediately apologized. I should have told her she never needed to. I didn't. I'm sorry. Not because I was caught. Because I finally understand what I helped steal. Daniel. I folded the letter carefully. Grace watched me. Do you believe him? I think. I looked out across the skyline. He finally stopped lying to himself. She nodded. That's what I thought too. She finished her coffee. There's one more thing. What? The company wants to name the new parental leave policy after you. I laughed quietly. No, they're serious. So am I. She looked surprised. It shouldn't carry my name. What should it carry? I thought about Lily. About empty chairs. Mystery recitals. Hidden letters. Call it the promise policy. Grace smiled. I like that. It reminds people why they leave work. Not because they don't care. Because someone is waiting. That evening I arrived home early. Lily sat at the dining table, surrounded by colored paper. What are we making? She grinned. A time capsule. For what? So future me remembers. He sat beside her. What goes inside? She began listing items. My favorite marble. A photo. My camp bracelet. She stopped. And she looked at me carefully. The 2 bunny notes. I hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. I don't want to forget. I looked at her with quiet concern. They hurt. They do. She folded the notes gently. But if I remember them, she smiled softly. I'll also remember what happened after. I realized then, she wasn't preserving pain. She was preserving healing. We sealed the metal box together. She wrote across the lid. Open in 10 years. Then she looked up. Dad, yes. Can we put one more thing inside? What? She handed me a blank sheet of paper. Write me a promise. I didn't hesitate. I wrote only one sentence. Wherever you're waiting, I'll keep looking until I find you. She folded it with extraordinary care before placing it into the capsule. Then she locked it. Spring returned almost a year after the day everything changed. The oak tree outside our house had grown new leaves. So had we. Life no longer revolved around proving anything. It revolved around showing up. Lily's elementary school hosted its annual talent showcase. The auditorium looked exactly as it had before. Rows of folding chairs. Bright stage lights. Children whispering excitedly behind the curtain. Only one thing was different. I was already seated in the front row 30 minutes early. A father beside me laughed. You're going to wear out that chair. I've got years to make up for. He smiled knowingly. No. He glanced toward the stage. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. The lights dimmed. Music began. Children walked onto the stage. Lily found me immediately. She didn't have to search. She smiled. I smiled back. The performance lasted only 12 minutes. But for me, it erased years. When the final applause echoed through the auditorium, I stood first. Not because I wanted attention, because I'd promised I would clap the loudest. And this time, I did. Outside the school, families gathered beneath blooming cherry trees. Vanessa approached slowly. She looked healthier, calmer. Counseling had softened the constant tension in her face. She stopped a respectful distance away. Lily asked if we could all get ice cream. I looked toward my daughter. She nodded hopefully. I smiled. Of course. Not because everything had been forgotten. Because not every shared moment belongs to the past. Some belong to the future. At the ice cream shop, Lily laughed as vanilla dripped onto her sleeve. She rolled her eyes dramatically. I always make a mess. You always have. She laughed harder. Vanessa watched quietly. When Lily wandered a few steps away to choose sprinkles, Vanessa spoke. I still don't expect forgiveness. You already know my answer. She nodded. I do. Another silence. Then she smiled sadly. Thank you. For what? For never making Lily choose. I looked through the window at our daughter. I refused to let adults turn love into a competition. Vanessa wiped away a tear. I wish I'd understood that sooner. So do I. There was nothing more to say. Some conversations end not with agreement, but with acceptance. Years later, the time capsule waited beneath the old oak tree. Lily stood beside it on her 18th birthday. Ready? She grinned. Ready? We dug together. Inside were the marble, the bracelet, the photographs, the 2 hidden notes, and my promise. She unfolded it carefully. The paper had yellowed slightly. The words hadn't changed. She read them aloud. Wherever you're waiting, I'll keep looking until I find you. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. You did. I smiled. No, I never had to look very far. She laughed through her tears and hugged me tightly. The little girl who had once waited by an empty chair had grown into a young woman who no longer questioned whether her father would come. Because he always did. As we buried the time capsule again, Lily slipped her hand into mine one last time before adulthood carried her toward her own future. The scars remained, but they no longer defined us. What defined us was something much stronger. Not the lies that had nearly separated a father and daughter, but every quiet promise that brought them back together.